All right, how are you guys doing today? Having a good time so far? They said I had the crowd after lunch, so they said that usually the crowd after lunch is super full of energy and responsive, and so have high expectations today. Raise your hand if you're a history buff. Who are my history buffs in the history teachers maybe? Great. So that is a clip from a movie called 42. It's about Jackie Robinson and gives the story of his life and how he changed the game of baseball. Anybody, history buffs out here, anybody know what was going on in the year 1945?
I live in Gordon County, so near Calhoun.
1945.
A little town called Ranger.
In the year 1945, America was a little different. We were just coming out of World War II. The U.S. was full of opportunity and new realized freedom and hope. But unfortunately, that same hope and freedom and opportunity was not offered to a lot of American citizens, millions of American citizens, simply because of the color of their skin. And Jackie Robinson, I had a slide up there with him. Jackie Robinson was one of those Americans. Jackie Robinson, he had a choice. He had a battle in this battle of civil rights that was raging on in the United States. There was a battle raging on in the heart of Jackie Robinson. He had a choice that he had to make. He could conform to the status quo of society that had really held back people like him, or he could work to change the game. Not only the game of baseball, but the game of society in which he lived. And as you read through the story of Jackie Robinson and read through stories of other leaders like him, you get a sense of commonality that they all have. You get a sense that each one of these leaders had a choice that they had to make that was very difficult. And what it leads us to is the basic premise that I kind of want to work off today. The basic premise that we as leaders, everyone here is a leader. We as leaders are not just players in a game. We are the game changers. We are the ones that pave the path for those coming after us. We are the ones who set the pace and the standard and change the game for those that follow. And so today, I really just want to spend some time in the few minutes that we have together working off some just basic truths. Some of these truths I've picked up on from my own experiences over the last few years. Some of them I've gleaned from others who have had the opportunity to build relationships with over the years. I want to work off some basic truths that can help us all understand who we are and what our purpose is as leaders and game-changing influencers in our communities, in our families, in our schools, for ourselves, and for our futures. And so we can take what we learned today and apply it right now and in the decisions that we make going forward. And one of the things that really starts with is understanding who you are as an individual. Understanding who you are as an individual.
They latched onto that.
Raise your hand if you think that you are an influencer. I asked the question, are you an influencer? Raise your hand if you think that you have the ability to influence other people. Let me see them. Okay. I would say about half of you. That's good. Well, let me tell you something. I have, over the past few years, gotten a lot of experience into spotting people who are influencers and who's not. And so I have devised this test, this Richmond Wrinkle foolproof test that determines whether or not you're an influencer. Can I share it with you? Okay. Well, the test is very basic. It involves taking these two fingers, and if you put these two fingers on your neck, about right here, above your collarbone,
and then you have to
you'll
afterwards,
get a sense of this throbbing. That's called a pulse. That lets you know that you're alive and breathing.
So I don't know if you've met Jeff.
And guess what? If you have a pulse, you're an influencer. Congratulations. If you don't have a pulse, that's a bigger problem that we probably need to address a little more immediately. When they after this, I want them to say that, hey, Richmond killed at YLS. I don't want that to be literally. So nobody backs today.
Part of his story today, he's been elected lieutenant.
We all are influencers. Every single person in this room has the ability and the power and the responsibility to influence others in what they do, in what they say, in the way they think.
Start over. And so it's actually.
And so what I don't want us to gather from today is, I think, what I did, that little test there, it was silly, it was super simple, but I think we can fall into this mindset and get a sense that, like, oh, well, I can't be an influencer because I'm not in the right position, or I'm not a certain age, or I'm not from, wherever, or my family is limited in resources. And that is just the furthest thing from the truth. Because the truth is that we don't really have a decision whether or not we're going to be an influencer. We only get to decide how we're going to influence. And if that influence is going to be positive, make a positive impact on other people, or if that influence is going to be negative. Starting to understand who you are. You are an influencer. Take it, use it. It's powerful.
I said, what's your dream?
Similar idea, second basic idea that I want to work from. Knowing your ability to achieve. Knowing your ability to achieve.
I thought I was going to grow up and be a football player.
Everyone in this room has the ability to achieve much. About 5 years ago, I was sitting exactly where many of you are sitting right now. I was actually a part of the first Youth Leadership Summit. There it is. That was our group photo of the first one that we had in 2014. And there were about 100, maybe 150 students at this one, and so it's awesome to come back and see that it has grown to almost 600 students. It's so incredible to see. But at this Youth Leadership Summit, I was in a position where many of you are in today. Who's a junior or a senior in the room? A lot of juniors and seniors. You guys are making decisions right now. And I was 5 years ago, I was where you're at. I was having to make big decisions about what I wanted to do with my life, where I wanted to go to college, what I was supposed to do, and it was all very confusing. Part of what was difficult about it is my scope was kind of limited. I grew up in a very small town. I grew up in Chickamauga, Georgia. Anybody from Chickamauga in here? Yeah? Okay. I went to a very small school. They aren't here today. But I went to Oakwood Christian Academy. We had a very small student body. I was actually the third graduating class, and I graduated with 11 people. 11 people, that is no lie, and I was not homeschooled.
I forgot how.
A lot of my friends who grew up in the Atlanta area, they went to high schools that were bigger than the entire population of Chickamauga. And so to say that I'm a small town guy is an understatement, I think. And what that did was kind of limit my scope in some ways. When it came to achievement and next steps and what I could do with my future, I didn't know what was out there. I didn't know where I could possibly go. There were so many different paths, and I only had scope of a very narrow set of them. And so it was difficult. And then in 2014, a few students from our school were invited to the first Youth Leadership Summit that Congressman Graves was putting on. And this was really one of the first opportunities in my life that I not only got to hear, but I got to see firsthand from the speakers who were there this idea of dreaming big, working hard, and achieving much. And this was a very meaningful moment in my life. This was a very meaningful and impactful moment to my perspective of what I could do with my future, because for one of the first times, I got to see that my window of opportunity, how large it was. I envy so many of you right now because your window of opportunity is massive. Your window of opportunity is massive, and it's only limited by how big you can dream. And it's so awesome because you are the only one who can limit your opportunities. Each decision that you make either widens or narrows the opportunities that you have for the future. And I challenge you to never, ever think that you are somehow limited in that window of opportunity because you're from a small school, or you live in a small town.
That's actually a really good
or your parents don't do one thing. Or
that's probably from a
you didn't
iPhone
grow up in
too.
Atlanta, because that's something
we've had
that
them,
I feel like limited me in some ways when I was your age. And it was the Youth Leadership Summit that I went to in 2014 that gave me perspective that said otherwise. Knowing what you can achieve, knowing that it can be big, understanding who you are.
Furthest thing from a preacher.
And then we end up at our third basic truth that I want to work on. It's the idea of getting uncomfortable. Getting uncomfortable.
All right. Get the
I feel like
snakes
so
out.
often we get trapped inside of our comfort zones. And so I would say about a year ago, I got introduced to this idea of the zones of achievement. It was from a leadership coach that I follow and have a lot of respect for. And basically, it's a very basic concept. It's probably one that you all have heard in the past, but basically it's the fact that when we take ourselves from a comfort zone into a discomfort zone, we can achieve so much more. I'm sure all of you can think back to specific times in your lives when you have had experiences that were difficult, that might have been really hard to work through. And I bet many of you would say that it's in those times in your life when you grew the most and had the best experiences and had the most to talk about when building relationships and influencing other people. And so I kind of just want to use this very basic diagram to talk about comfort zones and the importance of leaving. So this guy, let's call him Sam, okay? This is the comfort zone. Sam is in the comfort zone. As you can see, Sam is very happy because he's got a lot of short-term satisfaction because he's comfortable. But as you can see, as Sam starts to move towards his goals, there's a barrier that comes up because he's trapped inside this bubble of comfortability.
That's a crazy.
And that's limiting his ability to achieve his goals. But let's take George, for example. Let's just call this stick figure George. As you can see, George is a little less happy by body language than Sam is. And it's probably because he's trapped in this discomfort zone. He has placed himself in a place of discomfort, either by his choosing or not by his choosing. But as you can see, as George moves towards his goals, he has a much easier time getting there because he doesn't have this boundary that is encompassing his comfort bubble, like Sam did. Okay? The basic idea here, it's a very simple diagram. Hopefully it helps you take something away from this today. But the basic idea is we need to be moving from our zone of comfort to a zone of discomfort, because it's in the zone of discomfort that we might face not so much short-term satisfaction, but we will produce maximum long-term growth. And we'll have the opportunity to achieve much through working hard. When I graduated high school, I went to the University of Georgia. That was a step outside of a comfort zone for me. I went from being in a small town, in a small school, small church, small family, into this large city with 35,000 other students. My first class, freshman year, had 325 people in it. That was larger than like my entire school, K through 12 in high school. So to say that it was a little uncomfortable at times is definitely an accurate depiction of college. And as I think back over the last 4 years and the experiences that I've gone through, I've definitely had times in my life that were really uncomfortable and were really difficult. And what those times, as I think back over some of those times, not once have I regretted ever taking one step outside of a comfort zone in order to achieve my goals, because that's when I made the most impact on the people around me, on my community, and my future. And so as we look back in closing over these basic truths, understanding who you are, understand that you are an influencer, and you have the power to decide how you want to use it, knowing that you have the ability to achieve, and your ability to achieve is as big as your ability to dream. And if you dream big, work hard, you can achieve much. And this third basic truth, understanding that a step outside of a comfort zone may feel a little uncomfortable at present, and you may have to forsake some short-term satisfaction, but it's going to lead to a lot of impact for the people around you, for your future, and for your world. I want to close with a simple quote from Jackie Robinson, something that he incorporated in his life and was famously known for, and something that EK brought up earlier when we were having the conversation before lunch. And the quote is this: "The signs of an important life are measured in the impact that we have on other people." Through your impact with other people, you have the opportunity to make a substantial difference in a life and leave a legacy that changes the game for the world. Use it. Hold on to it. Thanks.